I can guarantee you that you guys grew up playing this game. This is Monster Truck Madness 2 by Terminal Reality Incorporated. They were also the team behind Kart Precision Racing, and this was my childhood. It was probably yours too. So I figured with nothing better to do on this fine Thursday evening, I would blast around the Arizona Rally Circuit for a few laps and talk about a game that was a pretty big part of my childhood. First of all, to get this thing looking the way it does and running the way it does on your PC like it does mine, you'll need a few things. First of all, you got to run this game through wrappers such as DG Voodoo or Nglide to simulate a 3DFX card. You'll then need to grab the community patch from mtm2.com, which adds a few quality of life fixes, including a near unlimited draw distance. So you'll have draw distance on par with what you'd expect from a modern video game, as opposed to something that came out in 1998. And then lastly, the community patch comes with an optional replacement for the stock trucks in the game. It's a complete HD makeover of all the vanilla trucks by a guy under the name of Cale Putnam, who has rebuilt all the trucks in Monster Truck Madness 2 from the ground up to be a little more accurate and a little more detailed, because obviously 20 years down the road our PCs can handle it. And he's actually given you more trucks than what came with the initial game. He gives you a lot of retro variants, such as this red snakebite that I'm driving that ran from 1991 to, I believe, 1996, when they swapped over to the green body. There's a lot of Bigfoot variants, a handful of Gravedigger variants, and he even went and included some trucks that probably should have been in MTM2 because they were active competitors on the Pace and USA Motorsports Tours back in the late 90s, but for whatever reason, just they didn't have enough time to get them into the game at launch. So there's some surprises such as Equalizer and Predator, which you always saw running on TNN's Friday Night Motor Madness when they would do monster truck shows. The only omission in this HD truck pack is he didn't redo the Team Bigfoot / WCW sponsorship entries like Sting, Hollywood Hogan, or the Hulkster. But like, what's in here is pretty fucking cool, and we're passing by the AI right now driving some of them. Just a heads up, the AI are not good in this game. I believe it's either tied into your CPU or processor speed, so like if you're going to play this game in 2022, it's exclusively going to be either Hot Lap Sim or something you can play over like Hamachi with your friends. So why was this game a big part of my childhood? Well, straight up, I grew up in the 90s. For those who don't remember, there was a channel called TNN which played country music and like, kind of conservative family sitcoms during the day and during weekdays. But on weekends, they would broadcast just like major American auto racing series. They had a contract to do NASCAR Busch races. They did pretty much the entire NHRA schedule, and they also broadcast competitive monster truck racing. And I was like 5, so I just thought that shit was awesome. So Microsoft ended up seeing the potential of like selling a monster truck game to like idiot kids like me, and they partnered with both Team Bigfoot as well as one of the championships, or one of the main championships in monster truck racing at that time, which was the Special Events Pen to Point series, and basically released just a Simcade monster truck PC game. The first game actually had like authentic stadium racing, and like a staging process and a Christmas tree and a qualifying ladder and an eliminations ladder on top of like the kind of arcade tracks you're seeing here. But the sequel, Monster Truck Madness 2, which we're playing right now, was just purely about off-road circuit racing. So the main reason I was able to sink so much time into this game as a kid was because it actually drove really well. And even 20 some years later, it still drives really well. It kind of reminds me of like a primitive version of Dirt 2. Now, it obviously doesn't look like much, but you gotta understand, this was cutting-edge shit back in 1998. A lot of racing games on the market still didn't allow you to roll your car over. If you picked up, let's say, NASCAR Racing 3, which came out a year after this game, or you had something like NASCAR Legends in your collection, or IndyCar Racing 2, which was only a few years old at this time, your car was literally glued to the ground and you were racing in this like hyper-controlled, sterile environment. Meanwhile, Monster Truck Madness came along, as well as its sequel, MTM2, and it was, by comparison, really, really punishing. And it was punishing because of the game's checkpoint system. If you've been paying attention at all throughout this video, you'll notice that I've been cutting the track an obscene amount, and that's because there are no track limits, because you're a monster truck. You're merely just asked to hit all the checkpoints around the circuit in, the right order. So this opens the door for a lot of different playstyles. You can either stick to the path that's been laid out by the developers, or you can just cut through like giant fields and hope it goes okay, and risk rolling your truck, but if you hit the line right, you'll just decimate everyone on the MSN gaming zone. So as a kid, this added like a ton of replay value because you were always finding new shortcuts, just like on a whim. And you could get really creative with them as opposed to like playing Need for Speed where there's this one designated path to like bypass a hairpin corner. Here, like, the sky was the limit. And then because a lot of the environments were designed as like quasi-open world maps with like a ton of Easter eggs and shortcuts and little secrets here and there, If you got really bored, you could just go exploring and like hit random jumps and like terrorize campsites that weren't actually part of the racing service, but were just there because like the developers added them because it would be cool. You could tell they had a lot of fun making this game, and that's something we just don't see in racing games nowadays. Now, things didn't end once you grew tired of the vanilla content. If you owned Monster Truck Madness 1, you could actually import all of that game's tracks and trucks into MTM2 and essentially double the game's list of content. So what we now know is like season passes in Dirt Rally 2.0, where all the tracks from Dirt Rally 1 you have to pay extra for in Dirt Rally 2. That was just like a free thing you could do in MTM2. And because it'd be about a decade until like the concept of DLC would go mainstream, TRI, the developers of this game, released all of their official modding tools for free, which instantly cultivated a massive, and I mean massive, add-on community. Or several add-on communities, I should say, because some people use this as like a hardcore monster truck simulation and would just make authentic monster truck mods, updated paint schemes and just like truck variations that would come out throughout the years. And others just use this as a blank canvas for like a fantasy off-road racer. So there are thousands of tracks available that I would just go and download every day after school. And that's basically how I learned how to use a computer. Definitely didn't teach 6-year-old me how to drive though, because I'm dunking on my kindergarten best lap times, putting down a 3-minute 1-second lap to close out this race at Arizona.